In this video, we're going to go over a few tips and tricks when using the Mannequin preset in 3D Code. I'm going to use the splash screen that pops up whenever you open the application, and I'll select voxel sculpting. Alternatively, you could select surface mode sculpting. They both share the same workspace and they're pretty interchangeable, but I just wanted to point out that you could start either way. So I'll choose the Mannequin, and I'm going to choose a different shader right off the bat. So I'm going to right click over this one and choose Apply to Visible, and that will apply it to all the parts. And as you can see in the Voxtree layer panel, there is a hierarchy here. You can collapse and expand some of these different layers. But essentially what you have is you've got this upper body parent layer, and then as a child to that you have the midsection, upper torso, left arm, right arm, and so on. And the neck, you have the head actually as a child of that. So with each one of these individual layers or objects, you have a gizmo stored at the joints rather than them being centered on the object by default. And the reason for that is it makes it much easier to pose this mannequin from the very start. You don't have to spend a lot of time trying to position it in the joint areas. It's already done for you. Okay, so let me give an example of that. On a model like this with a lot of different layers to dig through, the quickest way to pick a particular layer or an object is to hover over it and hit the H key. And you'll see it light up a little bit. It's a little bit brighter than the other objects around it. So with this upper arm selected, I can go to my adjust section of the tool panel, or I can hit the space bar to bring the tool panel to me and choose transform. You can see in the adjust section the transform tool is right here. And you'll notice the gizmo starts off right here at the shoulder joint area. So it's almost as if you have an IK chain here. Okay, and if I hover over this one and hit H, you'll see the gizmo is stored right where the elbow joint would be on a character. So it makes it very easy to quickly pose this mannequin. I'll hover over the hand, and you'll see it's right here at the wrist. So I'm going to undo a few times here. All right. The other thing I want to point out that's pretty important to know up front is that on the right side, your limbs are instanced from the left side. So as you might already be accustomed to in your 3D application, when you create an instance, it allows you to apply deformations from your parent object to the instanced object, or vice versa. So let me go ahead and demonstrate that. Again, I'll hover over the upper arm and hit H. And I'll just choose a regular brush. And as I brush on one side, you'll see it appear on the other. I'll undo that. So I'm going to hover over this right arm, and I'm going to hit the H key. And you'll see it appear over here. So what this effectively does is it allows you to place this arm on a completely different layer or hierarchy, yet still get a lot of the same benefits of using symmetry. It also allows you to go ahead and make individual transform edits, such as move and rotate. So with this arm selected, remember this is the instance, I can now just pose that arm independent of its parent. So I'll undo. I'll hover over the left side, hit the H key, and again, when you're rotating, or moving, it's completely independent. So you get the advantages of both, of not having to have symmetry turned on. At the same time, you can keep it independent. So let's go ahead and pose this character. I typically like to work in voxel mode whenever I'm doing any kind of merging operations or Boolean type operations, and so this would be the ideal situation. So let me go ahead and select the midsection here. We'll make this guy crouch a little bit and maybe rotate it. Then I'll select the head, hitting the H key. Maybe rotating it just a bit. Okay. And then the right thigh. You can use this ring here to rotate in screen space. It's probably a bit much. And use this inner ring to move it in screen space. Okay, so I think we get the idea here, and let's say we're ready to go ahead and merge all the parts together. I can go ahead and collapse some of these main layers. And what I would want to do is, rather than mess with any of these layers, because I can always go back and reuse a given part. If I don't like some of the work that I've done, or maybe want to repose a character, it's better to be able to reuse a part later on if you need, rather than having to start all over again, or maybe have to revert back to a saved file or something like that, which you can do obviously. But the point I want to try to get at is, it's probably best, because these are relatively low resolution, they're not really going to soak up a lot of system resources, so it's best to go ahead and merge to a completely separate layer. How we would do that is, we click on the parent layer here, and I'll click new layer, and I'll double click to name it merged parts, and I want to leave it in voxel mode. And there's a very good reason why. Whenever you're in surface mode with all these different parts, 3D Coat sometimes struggles with self-intersection when you're trying to merge parts together. Sometimes it can merge them together just fine in surface mode, and other times you'll get a self-intersection error, and that means whatever length of time it took to do all the calculating, you've just wasted all that time. So I like to just go ahead and cut straight to the chase by using voxels, which has no such problems merging objects together. All I have to do now is right click and choose merge visible. And what 3D Coat is going to do is, it's going to take all of these individual parts, and it's going to create a copy and merge them all together in a single layer. Now you can see one particular issue usually with voxels, and that is, I needed to make sure that I gave this layer enough resolution before I merged this. So what I'm going to do is hold down the Alt key and click on the visibility icon right here, and you can see that's way too low. Let me zoom in, and I'll hit my wireframe hotkey, and you can see it's very low resolution. Actually, it's not that bad from the standpoint of merging all these parts together, but we need a little bit more. So what I can simply do is just clear this layer rather than undoing, and just clear it so everything's intact here. What I want to do is come down to the bottom and choose increase resolution. Again, I don't have anything on this layer to actually increase, but what this is doing is telling 3D Coat to multiply the number of voxels on this layer. When you're working with voxels, the larger the scale of the object, the larger the resolution. But conversely, you could just increase the resolution on the layer in order to get enough resolution on a very small part. It's a lot like working with Photoshop. For example, you may be working on a large poster, and it makes very little sense starting off with an 8 by 12 inch canvas and then try to increase it after you've done some painting. When you're working in surface mode, you're only concerned about the number of polygons, but when you're working in voxels, remember, you're working with pixels. They just happen to be volumetric in nature. The easiest way to remember how it works in 3D Coat is, in Photoshop, you can get plenty of resolution by starting with a large canvas or document size, or you can increase the DPI, or the dots per inch, on a given document. So in 3D Coat, a larger object would mean a larger document in Photoshop. Whereas on the layer, if you increase the resolution, it's basically the equivalent to adding more dots per inch. So I hope that helps explain it a bit. I'll increase resolution one more time. That should be enough. I need now to hold down the Alt key and click on the visibility icon to restore the visibility of all the other layers. And now I can right click and choose merge visible. Okay, so it left all the other layers just like they were, okay, but it now merged everything, or merged a copy onto this one layer. So it's one single object now. This would be a good juncture to stop the video, and we'll pick up in the next one where we're going to do a little bit of cleanup. So stay tuned and thank you for watching.